Welcome to Film Fu, where the cuts are as clean as the kicks. I'm Shifu Payne, and today, it's time.
Checking out the Chin Chin Man.
Looking at Jackie Chan's career, it's really easy to see the ebbs and flows that martial arts films have had. Starting with the operatic acrobatics of the Chinese theatre, the game-changing presence of Bruce Lee, meeting somewhere in the middle and adding some extra flavour, and even the Western style of close-ups and shaky cam.
So let's start our look at the Chan Man's long and painful career by looking at an early entry in his filmography, Young Tiger.
Also called Policewoman or Rumble in Hong Kong, it stars Charlie Chin and Yuen and is directed by Mu Chu, who also wrote the film. This film is an interesting film, as Jackie does not star as the main character or even the hero. He's instead one of the primary antagonists of the film. Released in 1973, the same year Chan was an extra in Enter the Dragon, with it not being until 1978 that Jackie starts making the films he's known for with Drunken Master.
But we're not here to give a biography, we're here to look at the fights. So let's start with the plot.
A woman passes away in the back of a taxi driver's car, leaving behind the purse that a group led by Jackie Chan want to get a hold of. The driver, played by Charlie Chin, continually defends himself against the group and is eventually approached by the sister of the deceased woman that left the purse, who is played by Yuen. The two of them work together to uncover why this organization wants the purse and uncover the conspiracy that the sister was about to expose. The big conspiracy that the sister was trying to reveal at the start was one of a drug cartel, and the use of mules in the form of attractive women who could get away with having drugs concealed on them.
Because we've got two protagonists in this film, we've got two sets of themes and character arcs to go through. So let's start with Yuen.
Yuen is actually an unsung hero of Hong Kong martial arts, but her career is sadly not as smooth as one would like. Attending and studying Chinese martial arts and opera with Jackie Chan and Sammo Hung, learning under Yu Jim Yuan. She starred in several films during the 60s and early 70s, appearing in 1974 in The Man with the Golden Gun, before taking a hiatus for 28 years as the career of women in cinema at the time was not as promising as she would have liked, especially for those of an Asian background. She eventually came back to film in 2004 with Kung Fu Hustle, and her career has fortunately been steady ever since.
What does this have to do with her character in this film?
I'll explain later.
As this is a Jackie Chan film, he was one of the two stunt coordinators for this film, along with Chuan Yan Yuen.
Although Jackie went uncredited as a stunt coordinator, his fingerprints are all over this film, with many scenes of using objects and surroundings for defense. My favorite is the one with the tires.
But as much as I love that scene for the creativity and sheer fun of it, I'm not going to look at it here because it doesn't have a lot of thematic relevance. Instead, we're going to jump to the end of the film where Chi Yuan's character fights off a couple of thugs, while Chin and Chan face off.
The fight begins with Chin stopping the van, full of drugs, and then proceeding to engage. The fight builds up with some parries, blocks, and hits, including a nice roundhouse from Jackie, until things get interesting with Chin, where he grabs the back of one guy's knee and throws him to his back with a nice grapple. There are a handful of Chinese martial arts that deal with grappling and throws. For this, I'm going to attribute it to Shui Jiao, also known as Chinese wrestling or Chinese judo. It functions very similarly to the two, using a great deal of grappling and throws, and is rumoured to have existed for around 6,000 years, being the father or grandfather of modern wrestling and judo. The validity of this aside, it is a martial art that I am going to attribute primarily to its being brought into modern wushu. The fight is broken up briefly by Yuen stepping in or jumping in with a jumping sidekick, followed by some quick kicks and blocks, as well as an excellent sweep. All of these are moves that I want to link to Northern Shaolin. The reliance on kicks and the use of the jump sidekick pair nicely with the style, built to be used on drier land that could allow for more ranged attacks and a strong offense. Cutting back to Chin, his moves are all over the place, which makes a great deal of sense, as he's not a professional fighter or in a job which is very violent, such as Yuen, so it makes sense that he takes more of a beating and has less finesse.
Speaking of which, let's take a look at Chin's character in this film.
Chin's character is one all about survival. He's trying to survive the continual bashing of his life by these drug dealers, but he's also just trying to survive the day-to-day hustle. We're told that his character went to college, and it's clear that he's barely making ends meet, something which begins to get to him. He's presented as just a decent guy trying to do his best and be his best while life continually beats him down.
You're most kind, very kind.
Doesn't pay, though.
There's a monologue by Chin about the halfway point discussing violence in the city and how representations of it in the media could exacerbate such thoughts.
That setup makes it sound like the blatant messaging of this film. When I first saw this scene, I actually thought that the film was going to end with some clever solution or some pacifistic way to end the villain's schemes, but instead, it didn't.
I'll explain later.
Going back to the fight, we cut back to Yuen, and damn, that was a great scissor kick, except the guy did not then follow it up with another attack and let Yuen escape the hold. Jin begins to fare better, trapping this guy's wrist and roundhousing him multiple times. The fight then turns into a car chase and car fight with that Jam Man influence coming in.
Nice.
I'm not even analysing anymore, just commentating here.
Well, folks, we get a couple of beautiful kicks here from Chin. It looks as though things are turning out his way, and oh, that is a beautiful recovery from Chan, along with a swift kick thrown in for good measure. What a game!
The fight really becomes much more violent here as the blows come fast and hard from Chin, highlighting I think the hardened edge that he has gained from this experience, where before he was defensive and just trying to survive, now he's more aggressive and active in the fight, so it's now Chan that's on the defensive, using props and trying to survive. This brings us to the main message of Chin's story. It's not about violence affecting the youth or finding something to blame. Media is a reflection of the current landscape. It is continually affected and shaped by the current world. Immediately post 9/11 saw the overemphasis of American values and the clear messaging of unity and freedom in the face of terrorism. And while that is fine in context, looking at it with more of a degree of separation or from a certain point of view can make it seem like pandering or an America because America message. What does this mean here? Well, to look back at Chin at the start, he is someone who's just trying to make a living, trying to do good where he can, and just because it is the right thing. He's an idealist, so when he sees the increased violence around him, he's quick to blame an exterior reason and not consider that it's just violent people being violent. By blaming media or effects on children, it doesn't consider internal factors or the mental and social issues that can cause more violence. Chin is hardened by the film's events, becoming more proactive, maturing to meet a world that is violent, if not physically then socially or economically, becoming a more confident and active person.
What about Yuen's character? Well, unfortunately, there's not as much to work with in this film, but I think there's enough.
Yuen's character receives slights by the antagonist of being a female police officer and is asked along the lines of if she would rather fill out parking tickets. Towards the start of the film, she is nearly mugged and nearly sexually assaulted until she fights back, and her last line of the film is a clapback to the idea of not being an adequate officer. 1973 was just around the time of when Yuen took time out of acting, so it's not impossible to imagine the appeal of this character as a pushback against the conventions and stereotypes of women at the time, as well as the difficulty of finding a stable career.
I couldn't find any statistics for the number of female police officers in 1973, but the number today in Hong Kong is around 5,000, which makes about 17% of the police force. And it's reasonable to assume that this was lower in the 1970s. Chan is Chin's enemy, but the head of the cartel is Yuen's, as a representation of the society that looks down upon her and thinks her lesser just because of her gender.
Women are used in this film by the antagonist as a tool, a prop, a way to get what they want and that's it. Just a pathetic accessory to them. Which is where Yuen comes in. Yuen shows empathy to a woman that is going through withdrawal and has been cast aside. Her sister is killed by these people and her drive here is to see them brought to justice. Yuen doesn't take any shit and proves herself as more than just a meter maid, a decisive, compassionate individual who not only avenges her sister, but also proves the idea of women as lesser wrong and makes the arrest on the head of the cartel.
You can imagine why this film was appealing for Yuen.
With all of that said and all of my talk, what do we have to take away from this film? First, on the martial arts side of things, if you're going to grapple and try to pin your opponent, make sure to follow with a targeted strike and not let your opponent escape the hold. Give a bear hug, not a teddy bear hug. Second of all, remember to be proactive, and when chasing your goal, don't wait for an opportunity and instead make an opportunity by taking the appropriate initiative. Last of all, whether in martial arts or in the office, a person's gender, body type or age does not impact their ability to be good at the same thing as others.
I've seen people with big guts to be proud of, X chromosomes for days, and older than Tutankhamun himself, and work just as hard as millennials with six-pack abs and more Y chromosomes than I have chest hair. All that matters is the will and the drive to work hard and the determination to go out and get what you want. And if you disagree with anything that I've said, or are still in the dark about why none of these matter on a biological level,
We will explain later.
thank you for watching this week's video. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss a new video. And until next time everyone, peace be with you.